at least from that point of view anyway. But anyway, I did want to ask you your thoughts on Roman Polanski and the fact that after all these years he had been arrested last year and put through the process of trying to get him extradited back to the United States for raping a girl. I can't remember her name right now, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that, especially in light of the fact that it happened around the same time that one of the Manson family was released from prison, and I can't remember who it was right now, but they happened like in close proximity to each other. His arrest.
Well, you're probably talking about Squeaky Fromm got released.
Maybe, I believe that's I believe that's who it was, because I did a video about it on YouTube. If you want to check out my channel on YouTube, I go by the name Tenebrous T, which is Tenebrous. Most of my videos are political rants where I scream and curse a lot. So if you ever feel in the mood to hear somebody ranting and using excessive profanity, stop by. But occasionally I do things. Occasionally I do things that touch on the occult or paranormal or something like that. But I did a video about that, and I thought it was kind of odd that after all those years he was finally arrested, and they attempted extradition. Of course, they turned him down, so he's loose again. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, let's get back to Roman in a minute, but I think we should talk about Squeaky Fromm, because she wasn't part of the Manson family murder. She attempted to assassinate Gerald Ford back in '74, and this is something Andy Colvin, he's looked into the connections with Squeaky Fromm, Charles Manson, and Sarah Jane Moore was the other person who attempted to assassinate Ford. Sarah Jane Moore wasn't a Manson family member, but apparently knew Charles Manson growing up in West Virginia. And Andy Colvin was one of the first people to start looking into this, which is kind of a pretty weird coincidence, synchronicity, conspiracy that the two women that both attempted to assassinate Gerald Ford knew Charles Manson. Don't you think that's kind of odd?
Yes, I do. It's odd in the sense that they would have that particular connection, and I think I don't remember who it was. It might have been Sarah Jane Moore, and I can't remember where I saw this at, but I think someone had alleged that Charles Manson had made a trip to West Virginia to supposedly handle some business, accompanied by a woman that might have been Sarah Jane Moore. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, I might be wrong about that. So, but it seems to me that I recall reading that somewhere that Charles Manson had made a cross-country bike trip back to West Virginia.
No, I think you're confusing a couple different things. Manson, well, somebody who fit the description of Manson showed up in Ashland, Kentucky.
Oh, it was Kentucky. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like 68 during the period of the Manson family, and was allegedly seen with somebody who fit the description of Susan Atkins, one of the other Manson family murders. And so this guy who called himself the preacher, who was riding around on a motorcycle, was trying to start a kind of commune or something, and was turning some of the teenage kids onto acid and
you're breaking up a little bit. Do you, check your mic connection or...
How do I sound now?
Okay, you sound okay right now. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was probably just moving around a bit. So this guy named the Preacher showed up in Kentucky during this period, it was around 68 or so. And he fit the description of Charles Manson, turning on the local kids to acid like he was trying to start his own little cult or commune. During that same period, a guy named Darwin Scott was brutally murdered. Darwin Scott, and this was also in Ashland, Kentucky, Darwin Scott happened to be the brother of Charles Manson's father, who was named Colonel Scott. So that's one of those odd Manson family stories about unexplained murders or deaths that seem connected to the Manson family.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe I did get that mixed up a little bit there.
Now, back to Roman Polanski, like you said, it does seem odd that so the revelation of the method, they do this to mess with us somehow, that Squeaky Fromm's release and, trying to extradite Polanski back to the U.S. seems more than coincidence. Might, if you want my opinion on Polanski or whatever, it's kind of hard to, I have mixed sympathies. I mean, if he did what it appears he did, then he should come back and, pay the piper, but I don't know. I also feel sympathetic for somebody who's gone through all he has and is an old man. I don't know.
Well,
it's
yeah.
not easy. I wouldn't want to be a judge.
Oh, well, yeah. I can agree with that more, too. Certainly it's easy to come down on either side in that particular point of view because obviously he did go through a pretty horrendous ordeal with, with his wife being murdered. And, but like you said, if he's guilty of what he's supposedly guilty of, then, it's obviously a price to be paid for that. But, there's a lot of those underground stories about Polanski and his involvement with certain other things as well. So,
yeah.
Which make him a rather, a potentially very culpable person, let's just put it that way. And I know you're familiar with all of those stories. So, it's sort of like on the one hand you can be sympathetic, but on the other it's like, it may be just another cog in that big wheel going around. So yeah, I just thought it was kind of odd that both of those were happening in such close proximity to each other, and it just seemed odd that after all those years, somebody finally decided to take some action to try to get him extradited back here. And I think maybe it was just like a revelation of the method kind of thing, just to say, hey, look, we're doing something here. Look over here for a second, and then somebody waves their magic wand over on the other side, and you miss them doing something that they did over there because you were looking at that.
Yeah, Sarah Jane Moore and Squeaky Fromm both were released within a year of each other, too, I should note.
Yeah, and Sarah Jane Moore, I don't know about Squeaky Fromm. Has anybody heard anything about her? Has she come out, or has she spoken to anybody or talked?
Not
I know
exactly. About a few months ago, a story came out. Somebody saw her, a news crew caught wind that she was at a Walmart, of all places. She's in upstate New York somewhere. and filmed her coming out of the Walmart, and there was like a scene, and she knocked the camera, out of the cameraman's hand, and she was driving with her boyfriend. They had a VW, one of those old VW hippie vans, and the bumper sticker on the back bumper said "Born Again Pagan," and they identified where she was living at, and it was like in this old reconstituted Quonset hut, kind of living, the hippie pagan existence. So she was kind of outed, and they basically, the news crew there said, listed what her address was, and that story came out about a month ago. So she's trying to stay under the radar, but she's in upstate New York somewhere, unless she's moved since that episode.
So she's still living the dream, huh? With the hippie commune thing, she's still embracing that whole deal, huh?
well, why not?
I guess it's like, maybe the kind of supposed hold that Manson had over all of his acolytes, is so ingrained that they just have to keep going on with the archetype that they're working under.
She was one of her and Sandra Good were the diehards, and I think Manson finally got to the point where he realized that he wasn't. It wasn't worth his while keeping these connections anymore, and he basically cast it off. Sandra Good and Squeaky, but there's living the dream.
Now, one thing I could say that I think a lot of people miss out on with the Manson thing is here you have Charles Manson, who is really, admittedly, a freaky character on a lot of levels. But here you have a guy who's serving life in prison, who's never going to get out, and I think he wants to stay in, obviously, because the institutional life is, that's practically his whole life. He was in and out of prison ever since he was real young. But here you have a guy serving time for life for murder that he didn't even kill anybody, which is, and it made the career of Vincent Bugliosi, who has gone on to put his hand into the JFK stew as well with his Lee Harvey Oswald lone nut deal. So, and basically kind of making up this whole helter-skelter idea, or at least blowing it up out of proportion as a way to, boost his book sales and what have you. So, I mean, there's so much food for thought there. But we're coming up on the end of the show, so I wanted to give you a chance to plug your stuff before we sign off.
Okay, you can go to my website, adamgorightly.com, and all my books are there. If you go to Amazon and put in Adam Gorightly in the search field there, it'll bring up all the books. I also have a blog at gorightly.wordpress.com. And one other thing, we were talking about the shootings that happened in Tucson, Arizona. I meant to mention this earlier. It's interesting that what's the name of the lone nut killer there?
Which one?
Lee.
Jared Lee Loughner.
Yeah, the first reports of Mr. Loughner described him as a liberal pot smoker.
Oh yes, I remember. And and then you have the media trying to, go with the Sarah Palin right winger stiff kind of stuff. But I Gee, I wish we could go on for another hour, but we're down to like our last few seconds here. So I just wanted to wrap up, and I wanted to thank you for coming on, Adam, and